years of experience as a full stack developer. I mainly work with the C Sharp, .NET Core, ASP.NET Core, React.js, SQL, and SQL Server, PGSQL, microservices, and Azure. And recently, I worked at the Simplify Healthcare. I worked on healthcare application like Nova and ESSC platform, and I developed the REST APIs, built React UI screen. I worked on with the multi-tenant application and validate data using SQL. I also wrote the API test cases and worked with Azure DevOps for code management and developments.
Perfect. So can you share the screen? I will paste a question.
It is visible.
Yeah. So can you open Notepad and start solving this?
Okay.
So you are given a string. You need to reverse it without any built-in function. Don't don't have to worry about the syntax, just the method and whatever logic you're using.
Sorry.
I said you can just show the logic. You don't have to worry about the syntaxes.
Okay. 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 Yeah, it's done.
Okay. Can you please answer in the chat? And you worked on React as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever let's say UI on the UI side, the user clicks on the button. If let's say he wants to add some data in the database, right? So starting from the scratch, right from the UI to database, can you help me understand end-to-end flow of this?
Okay, sure. The when means the user always users click on the save button or on the UI means request follows the steps like first steps like a user enters the data when means clicks on the save button and the react then the react UI means collect the data from that and the UI performs basic validations like checking means required fields and after that means if data is valid the UI sends on HTTP post request as on the means ASP.NET Core web page using XOS and after that next step is the means request means reaches the collector and the collector validate the request and call a service layer like that and after that the service means contains the business logics and calls repository layer and the repository used to entity framework core to the means interact with the database and after that means entity frameworks generate the SQL insert query and save in a database like SQL Server or PGSQL, and then database returns. Hello,
And where does middleware come in the picture?
sorry.
Where does middleware comes into the picture?
Your voice is little bit breaking.
Hmm.
Hello.
Just yeah. Am I audible better now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does middleware come into the picture? Here?
Middleware. Young sir. Mm,
I mean, does middleware come into the picture here or we handle through different channels?
can you yeah you can text me.
Okay. I'm just asking, does middleware comes into the picture
Sorry.
in this request pipeline? Does middleware comes into the picture?
Okay. You mean that? So yeah, means yes, middleware is a part of ASP.NET request pipeline. Every request means pass through middleware before reaching the controller. Like that.
So what are the components middleware consists of?
Middleware consists of means
I mean, do you know how to
component.
create a custom middleware?
Oh yeah, means I can. Right. So firstly, I explain what is means middleware, custom middleware. There are means three main components means request, delegates, and invoke or invoke async like that, and then HTTP context. So firstly, request delegates it is holds the like a reference the next middleware in the pipeline and invokes these methods. It means contain the middleware logic it receive the HTTP context object and it can means execute the code before after means calling the next middleware. And HTTP context is it is means it's contain the information about current HTTP request and response like a header, URL, user, and response status like that.
Okay. And Suppose in a scenario where, let's say, on the inspect element on any browser of your choice, when we are trying to inspect, we see the response to be correct, and we are getting 200 OK response from the backend, but that is not being displayed on the UI. So, what are the things you will investigate?
Okay. So in that case, I means if a pair returning 200 means okay and response no data is correct, like, but the data is not
It's not
displayed
being rendered in
displayed.
the UI. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'll check the things. I means first I'll check the network tab in means browser and means confirm the API response container is expected data, and then I'll check with means whether the React component is receiving the response correctly, and then I'll verify the means state using use state or Redux is means updated with API response. I will check the if means you are using the correct state variable to the display data. I will verify the mapping also or the data binding logic is correct or not. And then I'll check any JavaScript error in the browser console. After that, I means confirm the component is re-rendering after the state update, like that.
Fine, that's correct. Okay. So when it comes to closure, do you understand how closure works in JavaScript?
Okay, for the closure means it means the inner function can means access the variable of the outer function even after the outer function has means finished executing. JavaScript means remember those variables because the inner function keeps reference of them, like that.
Okay. What do you see the difference between promises and async and await?
Right. Okay. So for that, so for asynchronous, it means the main purpose of the use them means promise used means dot them and dot catch, and if there are means so many API calls and the code can means become the difficult to read like that in promises. And for the async and await means it is building on top for promises. They means make asynchronous code look like a normal synchronous code, and they that code means easier to read, write, and debug, like that.
Correct, correct. That looks very messy. So, and also it makes developers life easy. I understand. Okay. So, how do you communicate between components in React?
So in that case means I means in React component communication is different ways depending on their relationship, like parent to child we pass data using prompts, and child to parent we pass the callback function from the parent to the child, and then the child calls the function and sends the data back, like that. And also we use the between siblings components, so we pass through their common parents for global data. Also, we use the Redux or means context API to share data across multiple
So, how would you
components, like that.
design your UI? Let's say one component is calling the API, okay, and the data which it gets is being sent to another component. So how will you do that? How will you achieve this? You got
So
the question?
for yeah, I got you.
Okay.
It means one component call the API to another component needs the same data, and it means I have few options there. If means component have the same parents, I will store the API response to the parent component state, and then I'll pass the data to both components using prompts. If the components are means a different part of the application, I will store the data in means Redux, and the first means component save the API response in Redux, and then second component means read the same data from the Redux. This avoids the calling API multiple times, like that.
Yeah. Correct. So suppose we've got to upload a large file, okay, from our UI, and the backend is to process the data and eventually save it in the database. How would you design your API to achieve this so that the user experience doesn't get compromised?
Okay. For it means the first tile means user selected file from UI. Then UI means perform the basic validations like checking file types and file size. And then UI uploads the file to the backends using post API with means multi parts from the data. And after that means if a file is very large, I split into smaller chunks and upload each chunks for means every one by one like that. And then after that the backend receive each chunks and validate it, store it temporary, for example in Azure Blob Storage or any other server like that. And after all chunks is uploaded, the backend means combine then into the original file. And then backend process the file means read data, validates it, and it means save records into database. And finally the API returns success response, and UI shows the success message like that. Can I means design API or means write the design or
Okay.
just text?
How it will look? Yeah. Just the syntax. You don't have to do much on that, but just the syntax.
Yeah, like I'm
Syntax, and you can maybe comment like this function will do this and so on. That's all.
okay. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It looks good. Okay. So, what are the services have you consumed on Azure side?
Azure sides means firstly means Azure App Services, Azure means Azure SQL database, Azure blob storage, Azure function, Azure DevOps, Azure Monitor, Azure Service Bus means Azure App Services is used to means deploy and host the .NET Core web APIs and React applications, and Azure SQL
What
means
about Azure
we
Bus Service?
Azure Bus Service means this is I have means use it to communication between service in a microservice architecture
So in this
like
project, you used microservices architecture?
yeah
Mhm. Okay.
it's we
So, okay. So how was the architecture? If you can explain me a bit
so our
of
backend
your application. Mhm.
yeah our backend was means built using the ASP.NET Core Web APIs and the front end was means developed in React build also means
No, what I meant like, what was the responsibility of each services individually and how they were communicating?
okay. Okay, so for that, yeah, means in my project, first means each Azure service had a specific responsibility, and they worked together to complete the application flow. Like our responsibilities means we hosted in like Azure App Service.
No, no.
For
Let's
this
say,
response.
for instance, there's an e-commerce website. Okay, so cart is a different service, and payment is a different service, and selecting product is a different service. So in that manner, how was your application divided into different services?
So in that manner means okay. So first means authentication means our application was divided into different services based on business functionality. For example, authentication services it's manage user login, authentication, authorization, then benefit service. It's handle feature like a create plan, copy plan, delete plan, and then code set configuration services here so it's manage, add, edit, and delete transaction and transmission of the code set data. And then a dashboard service, it's provide the data of the TNT dashboards using REST APIs and also notification and background services is there. It means handle the processing and synchronous tasks like that. And each service means had own APIs and business logic and the React UI means called means required APIs and when means one service needed data from another service they communicated through the REST API and for asynchronous communication we also use the Azure Service Bus where means required like that.
Okay. And when would you use Redux as opposed to context API?
Okay, so for the Redux means I use the context API when means I needed the share simple data like logged in user and them or means a theme or language. It means suitable for small application because it is a simple and means does not required. I use the Redux when the application is complex state in means shared across means many components. Redux provide the centralized store and makes the means state management easier and avoid prompts drilling and also better for a large application like that.
Okay, perfect. And last is how do microservices interact with each other? Which method did you use?
Okay, okay. So for
Question: how
that,
many ways we can do that?
okay, so if one service needed data from another service, it send a strip request that means a service and APIs and receive the response in JSON format for some
No, no. First of all, there are two ways to communicate. One is synchronous and one is asynchronous. Which
asynchronous.
method did you use? Yeah.
Yeah, it's for
Were you
that
involved
means
in it or you just worked on
asynchronous.
individual? Okay.
Yeah, Yeah, means we use synchronous operation means we use then Azure Service Bus and services publishers to message the service bus and on other services like that.
Mm. So how did you configure your Azure Bus service?
Yeah. For the Azure, in my project, I worked with the Azure Service Bus to communication between service and the service bus is already created in Azure environment by means DevOps or cloud team. So my responsibility was means integrate the application with Azure Service Bus. So we created queue and a queue service bus, and we also store the service bus communication strings in the application configuration or Azure app configuration. And also means in the .NET application we use the Azure Service Bus SDK. Also, when the business event
That's fine.
means occurs.
That's fine. That's okay. So the last thing is, let's say there are multiple users trying to, update the database table. Okay. How will you make sure that data is not inconsistent?
Okay, so
So
in that
a lot of requests are hitting your API, and eventually it has got to go and get stored in the database. So how will you maintain the consistency? Yeah.
so in optimistic concurrency, either means record is means raw version and columns, and when means user it's so
Okay.
okay.
Fair enough. Uh,
Yeah.
Thanks, Vivek. It was nice interacting with you. I will share my reviews to HR, and they'll reach out
Okay.
to you. Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.